You are listening to Caffeinated Combat, featuring myself and my co host here, Kyle. And unfortunately, there's been some sad news in the world of mixed martial arts. Khabib's father, Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov, has passed away due to heart and COVID complications. Quite a shame. He had a huge camp riding on him. He was a great dude. Um, Very sad news to come out of that. How do you take all of this, and what do you think it means for the fighters back in Dagestan, including obviously Khabib Nurmagomedov, Islam Makhachev, just to name a few? What how do you think this is gonna play out?
I mean, it's rough, man. That guy was, by all means, the patriarch of that group, of that whole Dagestan team. And but with that being said, I feel like he has put so much groundwork in place. Him and Khabib, honestly. About a year ago, they opened up I think it was called the Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov martial arts school or something along those lines. It was a martial arts school named after him. He and Khabib opened it, I assume, with probably with the money Khabib got from the Conor fight and the Dustin Poirier fight, because according to Uncle Dana, Khabib is very, very rich, and I believe it. Dude's a lightweight champ of the world, undefeated, and there's a pretty good video you could watch. I think it was on RT Sport about the gym opening, and Abdulmanap basically said this thing that it was along the lines of, we have all this money, we could use it to open up bars, restaurants, whatever, to make more money, but we decided to open up this training facility in Dagestan for all these young people to come and train and try to make something of themselves. Because something you have to remember about Dagestan, it suffered a lot due to some of the conflicts with Chechnya. There's a lot of religious conflicts. There's Muslim extremism there. There's just a lot of ways in which young people in Dagestan could really struggle to get out of that area. And Abdulmanap was crucial to helping to rectify that. He knew it's a way for these young guys to get out of that poverty and get away from just the conflict was sports. It was either you train to go into the UFC or some other mixed martial arts organization, or you train to wrestle for Russia in the Olympics, anything along those lines. Because for a lot of those young guys in Dagestan, that's their only real opportunity. And if they don't fall into that, they go down a different path, which could be much much worse. And another thing I read about him, that he held on to this philosophy that he believed uh, every young man should know how to fight and defend themselves and their families. And we in America, we may not really understand that kind of thing, but you have to understand that this is an area that has just been ravaged by war, by violence, and his philosophy of people needing to know how to defend themselves. It's a very real thing in that part of the world, in northern Caucasus. And uh, he and the rest of the Dagestan team have churned out some just incredible talent, and I think it's only just beginning. And of course, his passing is a big hit to Khabib, to the Nurmagomedov family, to everyone in Dagestan. Really, the guy was a hero for that country. Um, it's a big hit, but I do believe these guys will come back stronger than ever. I believe his legacy will live on through people like Khabib and Islam Makhachev and other people he's helped bring into the MMA world and into the wrestling world. Uh, that stuff is gonna live on. His facilities, his just the camaraderie he built, or he helped build among those guys, that's not going anywhere. They're going to continue living on, fighting for him. Uh, I truly do believe they'll come back stronger than ever. It's a big hit. It's very sad. The guy was only like 57, something like that. He wasn't past 60 years old. But the things he did in Dagestan, in the world of wrestling, and in the worlds of mixed martial arts, that's alive and well. That's gonna that legacy is gonna live on.
He created so many good opportunities for these young uh, boys and fighters. As you said, Dagestan's not really a place where you have that much opportunity. You know, like you were saying, you go into the military, you go into crime and whatnot. But he let these people in on another life where they can have a chance to actually make something really good come out of it. And all the things about how you mentioned he's helping not to use the money to create bars and to do all that other stuff, but to put it towards good causes for his
A little
homeland.
jab
And
at Connor there, I think
yeah,
that was.
no more Proper 12 funding for Khabib and his team. But yeah, he was such a model coach. You know, he had it all. He created these super fighters. And I think you're correct in saying that we're not going to see the end of it. It's definitely a huge blow, obviously, but that passion that he implanted in all of these guys is just going to live on. And I think that they're going to take his wisdom and they're just going to do the same thing onto new fighters and new kids and just give more people opportunities. It's just a nice effect where his greatness will live on through his students. And it's so sad to see him go so soon. What really agitated me was Conor McGregor's opinion towards all of it. I don't know if you saw his tweet about how it might have been a cover up or something like that, so Khabib could duck fighting. But I feel
he
like
ate his words pretty hard.
Yeah, I recently saw that tweet resurface. I know he deleted it, but oh man, that's just something that really kind of sat the wrong way with me. So rightly so, I had to go back and watch that fight and watch Khabib maul him to death. It was the right thing to do.
And
But,
then swan dive on Dylan Dennis.
yes. Yes.
Which, you know, a funny thing to think about after all of that, when all that happened with Connor and the Dylan Dennis fight afterwards. Khabib's thing after, everyone was asking like, oh, do you think they're gonna press charges? Do you think the Nevada Athletic Commission's gonna suspend you? Do you think they're gonna strip you the belt? This, that, and he was like, dude, I'm just worried about what my dad's gonna do. My dad's gonna be pissed. You know, because that's very much against what they stand for. You know, I think both Abdulmanap and Khabib they're pretty conservative. I don't mean conservative in the way that we stupid Americans think of that term. I mean reserved. That's probably a better word. They're pretty low key guys. I mean, you could probably count on one hand how many interviews there are with Khabib's dad. I mean, he's just a very low key guy, very selfless. He didn't. I don't think he gave a shit about the fame and the, you know, that his son. He cared about much greater things than that. And yeah, it's rough seeing all this, and especially because it was COVID related, and you have all these just complete idiots thinking this virus is still like, you know, it's a hoax, or it's just the flu, or, you know, all this bullshit you're hearing. People not taking it seriously. You hear that mostly in America. I doubt people in places like Dagestan are doubting the validity and the dangers of this virus. I mean, I think Khabib said something like 20 some people in his family got infected with it. Like, that's nuts. So that part of the world got hit really hard. But, you know, this is the kind of thing that Khabib's dad, Abdulmanap, prepared them for. I mean, he instilled in them this toughness and this resilience because this is a part of the world that gets hit hard with things like this. It's not a well-developed part of the world. It's not a rich part of the world. So these are people that are incredibly resilient. I'm not saying, you know, the virus just isn't going to affect them or anything, but these are strong individuals. And you know, of course, the Nurmagomedovs are a huge part in creating that that just crazy toughness in these guys. I think we've only seen the beginning of what these Dagestani fighters have to bring. I mean, everyone knows Khabib, um, but it's going to be a takeover. I fully believe that. Um, the way we've seen New Zealand kind of take over right now with Volkanovski, with Israel Adesanya, even with Dan Hooker. I mean, I know he just lost to Dustin Poirier, but the guy is still a badass. All these New Zealanders coming out of city kickboxing, we're seeing a real big takeover in 2019 and in some of 2020 thus far. I think we're going to see the same thing, if we haven't already, with Dagestan. I think Khabib is just the start of the dominance we're going to see come out of that part of the world. Russian fighters are on the rise. Their wrestling is something special, to say the least.
I think the wrestling base that the Dagestanis possess is just the most well-rounded base you could possibly have in this kind of sport, because they use their wrestling and that combat sambo background that they all seem to have as such a good offensive tool, such a good defensive tool, and they seem to have that instilled in them from when they were young kids. They were wrestling all their lives, so they have so much more time to learn these aspects that a lot of people just don't learn. And you could build this boxing, the Muay Thai on top of that, and you can just have such a dangerous opponent. I mean, you saw Khabib outboxing McGregor on some of those exchanges. I know in round 3 it was largely a stand-up fight between them, but I would argue McGregor is one of the best boxers in MMA, and Khabib stood up with him for the entire round, and he held his own very well, and even knocked him down in the second round. So that wrestling background really frightens the opponents, because you have this good striking, like with Zabit, like with Khabib and Islam Makhachev. You have this great striking, but you also have that constant threat of just being grabbed and mauled to death. I think it's easily the greatest base to have in MMA that you can build the most upon.
Yeah.
And
I go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I agree. I think it's the best base you could have. I was reading an interview that they did like a year or two ago with Abdulmanap, and he admitted, I think Americans are superior in the boxing aspect and the striking aspect. You could say that for the Dutch as well. I think Brazilians are the best on the ground, but in terms of, oh no, Willie didn't like that remark about the Brazilians having good jiu-jitsu. She disagrees.
You shouldn't mention Brazilians.
She thinks
around her.
Eddie Bravo's jiu-jitsu is far superior to any Brazilian on the map. But yeah, he said Americans, he thinks, have the advantage in boxing. Brazilians on the ground, probably, they have crazy good jiu-jitsu, but when it comes to wrestling, to takedowns, the Russians with that combat sambo judo style, it's a force to be reckoned with. Now, Khabib, of course, is a special athlete, but it's interesting to see how this style is translating into wider MMA. So you have Dustin Poirier, a Louisiana guy, taking some of those tools that it seems like he probably learned in the Khabib fight, because that was a hard fight against Khabib for him. I mean, a really hard fight. And on the ground against Dan Hooker last week, Michael Bisping coined the term the Dagestani handcuff, which is basically just a fancy term for wrist control. But it's interesting how they do it, and you could see this in every Khabib fight ever. He does it all the time, and he does it so well, where he gets you down, he gets you up against the cage, he grabs your wrist and brings it across your own body, nullifying any kind of offense. And then to keep you on the ground, he straightens out your leg and wraps it up with his own, and is able to just land as much ground and pound as he wants from there. And Dustin Poirier was actually doing this in the Dan Hooker fight. He was taking that wrist, bringing it across the body, doing that. I love that term, the Dagestani handcuff. I think that's brilliant. And really landing some nice ground and pound on Dan Hooker. Does he do it as well as Khabib does? No, of course not. But it's interesting to see an American who fought Khabib kind of adopting some of those tricks. It's really cool, and I think we're gonna see so much more of it in the next few years or so.
I think the Dagestani tricks are the keys to victory here. It's if you keep adding those to your game on top of what someone like Dustin Poirier has, you're gonna be truly
Terrific boxing, yeah.
unstoppable. Um, I uh, I saw in a interview with Faraz Sahabi, he was comparing American style training with Russian style training, and he mentioned a lot about how Americans will train very hard, very intensely on a couple days of the week, and Russian people and Dagestani as well will train less intense but more days a week and ultimately have more training time by the end of the year. And I wonder how much that has to how big of a role that has between the American style wrestling where it's extremely intense and is based on recovery and the Dagestani or the Russian style training where it's more evenly spread out, less intense but less recovery because obviously you don't need to recover. And I want to see Americans start incorporating this training a lot more. You see Faraz Sahabi students kind of taking that into account and training like that. Um, but I think the Russians, like you were saying, and I just think they have a better system than we do. I mean, American wrestling is no slouch, but Russian wrestling just seems to take the cake on everybody. It's just this grindy, grueling process that completely demoralizes your opponent, and it's much more interesting to watch than to watch someone like Chris Weidman wrestle somebody on the ground. I completely love what they're doing over there, and I know that a lot of wrestlers like Yoel Romero forced to wrestle since he was a little kid by the Cubans, and some of that could be said about the Dagestanis and the Russians kind of forced to wrestle as kids. But I think that over there in that camp, especially with Khabib's dad, I think they're just doing it for such a good cause, and they're just creating such dangerous people
And I
with the
think
best training. I love it. I can't say more good about it.
I don't think they view it the way we do. We look at being forced into wrestling as a kid as like, "Oh my God, how could you do that to your child?" I think these guys view it as we're doing you a favor by doing this. We're forcing you in this really difficult thing at such a young age, and because it's going to benefit you later in life. And I bet these kids would even agree with that because they live such different lives than us. We can't relate to that. We can't relate to a region of the world that is war torn, and there's so much religious conflict and so much poverty and so much terrorism. We can't relate to that lifestyle because we're privileged Americans. But these guys can, and I imagine it's a very sink or swim kind of society, and these guys are happy to be taught how to swim at a very young age. And something I want to go back to real quick. You were saying about Faraz. I think Faraz is one of the best coaches in MMA. I would put him right alongside people like Trevor Whitman, Henry Hooft, Eric Al. I don't know how to say his name. Al Bercia or what Henry Cejudo's
Close
coach or
enough.
former coach.
Yeah.
They call him Captain Eric. But Faraz, if you listen to his episode on JRE, he is very adamant about that. Don't don't give 100% every day in training. Uh, he's very much against overtraining and thinks that is such a problem with the way a lot of professional fighters tend to train. And the proof is in the pudding. GSP, he held that philosophy on the GSP, and GSP is, in my opinion, the greatest to ever do it. Of course, you can make the debate that it's John Jones or Henry Cejudo or whoever you want, but there's no doubt that he's in that conversation, um, at the head of that conversation even. So yeah, when someone like Farad, even Trevor Whitman holds on to that same. Now I'm thinking about it. Trevor Whitman on his recent episode with JRE it was the same kind of thing. It was these guys a lot of times they just go too hard, and you would rather some longevity rather than just, okay, go as hard as you can go on Monday and then Tuesday you're shot. You would rather 7 good days of training than 5 great days and 2 awful days where you're taking 1 step forward and 2 steps back. You're doing yourself a disservice. So yeah, I think as the sport of MMA just gets bigger, people are gonna figure out these little kinks and stuff in training. You have to remember that this sport is still very young. Disciplines are not young. Something like, boxing and wrestling obviously have been around for forever, but the combination of all of them into one sport, that that is still relatively young, and there's still some philosophies, some styles, some uh, preparation things, strategies, tactics that are a little archaic, and we're going to see those kind of buffered as this sport gets more advanced, gets more I mean, look no further than like a fight from the early UFC days to Dustin Poirier and Dan Hooker. I mean, that is Dustin Poirier and Dan Hooker. That is some of the most advanced martial arts you will see in the entire world. And then you look at some of these early UFC events, like Ken Shamrock and Royce Gracie, and you're like, oh my God, how are these guys successful? Well, they were successful for that time period, and the sport has evolved. We're just going to see that evolution transcend into training and into preparation, and how these guys take care of themselves, and how they certain mentalities too are even going to die out. I think the whole idea of going out on your shield, or not talking about injuries, or not talking about mental health things in the sport, all that's gonna die out, I believe, in the next decade or so as the sport evolves.
I think you're right. It's going to evolve into a positive manner. Now we've kind of concluded here that the Dagestani way of training seems to be superior than most other ways, and the Dagestani form of fighting with that combat sambo and that Russian wrestling base just seems to beat all others. Now, I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about the Dagestani fighters in general, and who you think are kind of the most dominant. I would have to say, obviously, Khabib Nurmagomedov, undefeated. I think he's 28-0 now. Obviously, you can't talk about Dagestani people without mentioning him. I also think Islam Makhachev is extremely promising. I believe he's 7-1 in his UFC career. Similar fighting style to Khabib, and then Zabit Magomedsharipov. He didn't. I don't believe he trained under Khabib's
No,
father,
he
but
didn't.
he's still from Dagestan, and he still has those same principles that is taught there. You could kind of tell by the way he fights. He just grabs your legs and you're on the ground. And I think those three fighters are probably the most stand out to me. What would you think on the matter? Any others?
It's Khabib, man. I mean, Khabib is a special individual. Every time you get to watch that guy fight, it is an absolute treat. Um, he I don't know if we've ever seen anyone quite like him. Um, I can't think of a more dominant wrestler in MMA history. I really can't. There's guys that are terrific wrestlers, but then they also rely on some other things, like Daniel Cormier. Daniel Cormier is obviously a terrific wrestler, but Daniel Cormier is no slouch on the feet either. GSP was a terrific wrestler. Matt Hughes, but no one does it the way Khabib does it. It's a special kind of dominance. Uh, yeah, I mean, as far as the Dagestani fighters go, it's 100% Khabib for me. I think Islam Makhachev has, and Zabit for that matter. They have a lot of work to do, but they are promising. They're both still young in their careers. Um, Zabit, he looks just like Abe Lincoln, which is cool. So good for him. He's got to work on his
He
gas
he
tank.
fights just like Abe Lincoln too. I believe Abe Lincoln was a fantastic wrestler back in the
That's
day.
true.
Hall of
Well, Abe
Fame,
Lincoln
and
was going for a double leg on John Wilkes Booth, but he had a gun.
that was the only problem there. It happens
Yeah.
to the best of us, you know.
Yeah, I mean, hey, your wrestling could be great, but when you have a pistol, the pistol always wins. But yeah, I mean, both of those guys, they have a lot of work to do in their game. Zabit, I think his gas tank definitely needs some work. I can't see him going 5 rounds anytime soon. Excuse me, but uh, as I stated before, the sport is only going to evolve from here on out, and the legacy Abdulmanap left behind, it's only going to increase. It's only going to these guys are just going to benefit. They're just going to be getting better and better and better. As Conor McGregor once said, "We're not here to take part. We're here to take over." And he was referring, I think, to Irish fans or Irish fighters. Because if he was referring to Irish fans, he was 100% right. If he was referring to Irish fighters, name another Irish fighter besides Conor.
There was that one guy. His last name is Gallagher. He fought in Bellator for a while, and he was trying to imitate Connor.
Didn't he get
Pretty much, yeah.
fucking slept
He
in like
got
a humiliating
murked
fashion?
instantly. Yeah, that guy was a total dick. He was just. I mean, watch his fight. I wish I knew his first name, but I know it's something
I know
Gallagher.
who you're talking about. He looks like a young Connor. He's even got like almost the same tattoos.
At least Connor has some kind of class to him. At least before that Khabib fight.
Connor was also original.
Yeah.
There was no one like Connor before Connor.
Besides Chael Sonnen. I mean, the only person known to beat Khabib easily. The greatest wrestler of all time.
See, the difference though is that Chael is much less bombastic, I guess you could say, than Connor. Connor is this larger than life, comes out screaming and cursing and is just like in your face, whereas Chael is just like kind of quiet but clever as hell. And he's not quiet, that's the wrong word, but he's a little more like reserved in his he's very laid back in his insulting, when he's talking about the Nogueira brothers trying to feed a carrot to a bus. Chael is like, I think Chael could be a stand-up comedian, whereas Connor is a little more like hype. He's all about the hype and the energy and the loud, craziness. It's like he's on cocaine all the time. He might be. I don't really know.
Guaranteed. I mean, I watched Connor's fight with Khabib. I mentioned that a little earlier, and the ending, it's not on the UFC's YouTube channel. You can't see the ending with the eagle dive into the crowd and such. But I watched another video that highlighted that exact moment, and watching Islam Makhachev punch Dylan Dennis in the back of the head is one of the greatest things I've ever seen.
Yes.
There's a slow motion version of it, so you could just see every detail. I love Dylan.
There was one.
He's kind of a dick, but it's nice to see him get that.
I don't love him. I think he's a piece of shit.
I feel like he's such a fun fighter to watch. I don't like him as a person, but as a fighter, he's like a one-trick pony, like Ben Askren. So it's very interesting to see him when you get styled up.
Ben Askren so much.
Oh, I love him too, but you got to admit he doesn't have that striking.
There was this other really promising Dagestani fighter that I think hit Connor during that altercation, and he is no longer in the UFC. I can't remember his name.
Yeah,
I want to say it starts with a Z. Let me Google just Dagestani fighters. It was Zabit in a disguise. I bet he will pop up right away.
Well, Khabib's brother was supposed to fight soon in the UFC, if I'm correct. Right?
Yeah.
And he got pulled, though, off after Abdulmanap's death, which is unfortunate, but expected.
Yeah. Oh, listen to this. This is a Reddit stat, so you know it's for real.
That's the good stuff right there, yes.
Collectively, Dagestani fighters have won 87% of their fights. That's from 2019.
I think there were a few outliers at the bottom that had like 6 losses or something like that. So if you axe those two, you have even a better statistic right there.
Yeah.
That's I mean, it's still impressive nonetheless.
Yeah. Ooh, we forgot about Ruslan Magomedov. He's very, very good. God, what is this guy's name? Is he just...
Didn't they ban
Oh, here it
Islam
is.
for a second, but they brought him back or something like that?
Maybe. It
Or
might
maybe
have
they
been
just
after
they might have
the...
just fined him.
It might have been after the whole incident with Connor. Zubaira took Jesus Christ.
It's a tough one.
Zubaira Tukov.
Tukov.
Zubaira
Tuco.
Tukov. Tuco. It was Tuco Salamanca. I want to say he got axed after after the whole incident. I think he was one of the guys that punched Connor in the back of the head, like jumped in the octagon. Yeah, Zubaira Tukov. Actually, maybe he's still... Oh, wait. No. Okay, he got a suspension, but I guess he's still with the UFC. He last fought February 23rd, 2020. He beat Kevin Aguilar, TKO, in Auckland, New Zealand on the Felder versus Hooker card. All right, so he's still around. Never mind.
That's good. I would hate to see them be axed for that.
Yeah, I mean, I thought attacking Connor was after he had just got strangled by Khabib was pretty fucked up, but
I mean, if you think back to the
Dennis,
stuff they said about,
on.
I mean, their
Dylan
religion and all
Dennis.
that stuff,
Yeah.
they attacked them more than personally. So I can understand
everything
it.
he gets. Of course, it's still against the law, and you shouldn't do it. But man,
Have you seen Dylan in Bellator though? I think he had 2 fights.
No.
Did you watch any of his
I
fights?
don't give a shit about
It's
him.
basically he gets pieced up on the stand up, and then he says, "Okay, I'm gonna grab your leg," and then he gets a knee bar or something like that. It's just like a Damian Maia if he didn't have arms. You know what I mean?
Does he fight cans?
Yes,
Okay.
but he is also a can technically because he's very new to the whole MMA part, not just the jiu-jitsu part. You know.
The only thing I ever see about Dylan Dennis is like his shit talk on Twitter. That's the only thing I see
with the models and stuff. Just like cringe, you know.
Breaking
like
news.
the Colby.
Breaking news.
Go
38
ahead.
seconds ago, posted by Ariel Helwani. Negotiations for Usman versus Masvidal are done, pending the results of COVID-19 testing. So it's done. It's a done deal, baby.
So it looks like he just needs to pass that COVID test, and then it's in the books, and we're ready to go.
So here's the thing. I would say he's probably going to pass it. He's probably fine. Jorge lives in Miami. Florida is bad. Florida be a bad
That's the new
COVID
New York.
State. Yeah, it pretty much is. You're right. So that was going to be our next topic, was going to be the possibility of Jorge Masvidal taking on Kamaru Usman for the welterweight strap on Fight Island next weekend, week yesterday. So as everyone probably knows by now, Gilbert Burns tested positive for COVID-19 and was taken off the first Fight Island card, the July 11th card. And now it looks like Masvidal might be stepping in. This is spicy. I'm still not confident it's going to happen, but it's spicy.
I wonder if he got the money that he really wanted.
That's what I'm wondering as well. What incentivized him to do this?
I mean, he doesn't have anything to lose. 7 days notice. If he loses the fight, no one's really going to say like, oh, wow, that guy lost the fight fair and square. They're going to be like, oh, he lost because he didn't have a training camp, you know? Mm-hmm. So I feel like there's not much to lose and there's a lot to gain.
It's true.
But it's a high risk, high reward kind of thing. That's Kamaru Usman right there. That's a dangerous man.
First thing I want to say is, this really sucks for Gilbert, and of course we're wishing him all the best. I think he'll probably be okay. I mean, the guy he's a superstar athlete. He's probably in terrific health, other than this, COVID thing. So wishing him all the best. Hope he's all right. Confident he will be. But it really sucks because he just worked his ass off to get into this position. Not one of the most popular names in welterweight right now, I think, because he's not one of the loudest people at welterweight. Your most popular people are definitely the champ, Usman. Masvidal, definitely the most popular, and of course Colby, because Colby's a loudmouth. Uh, so guys that are really, really skilled fighters, but they're not the most vocal people and they're not fan favorites. Sometimes they can get swept under the rug. Gilbert Burns is one of those people, as well as Leon Edwards. So it really sucks because this pandemic was actually it probably really worked in Gilbert Burns' favor because we're operating on like different rules now in terms of title contention with this pandemic because things are so restrictive, right? Who is healthy, who's in the US, who can travel, who can't travel, who's in training, who's not in training. There's just so many factors. And right now, the best thing to be is incredibly active and available. Gilbert Burns was both of those things. He was incredibly active, dominant in every one of his recent fights, and was just always down for the next one. He was always down for the next fight. He was very much whenever the UFC called, it was a yes from Gilbert Burns. So it sucks to see him get taken out of this. But of course, health comes first, and wishing him nothing but the best and a speedy recovery, and also hopefully he is back in title contention very soon. I hope he's not just forgotten after all this is said and done. Because in a few months' time, I bet he'll be ready to go again, and I'm sure he'll want that title shot back. But looking ahead at Jorge and Kamaru, I was I was very sure this was not going to happen. I thought this was a pipe dream, but now it's seeming to this like we're getting updates by the hour. This is seeming more and more likely. I'm very surprised. Are you?
Well, it depends on how you think about it, because I think that if you look at Jorge versus Gilbert Burns, who has a higher chance of winning that fight, I think that Gilbert Burns is just a more well-rounded individual that could match Kamaru Usman's style a lot more. So when you look at it from Kamaru's perspective, which is what I thought would probably be the deciding factor on the fight not happening, because I would assume that Kamaru didn't want to fight an opponent on short notice. But if you really look at it, I think that Kamaru might understand that Masvidal is probably an easier opponent to fight than Gilbert Burns, who again was a training partner of Kamaru Usman. I think that's a big detail there. He knows all the secrets and all the strategies of Kamaru, even though he did leave the camp for another one. But I was surprised that it happened just because there's so many things that could go wrong here, just in light of the whole pandemic and such. And I love Gilbert. I got to be honest with you, Kyle. Let me just be honest with you. I didn't really know who he was until he was fighting Tyron Woodley, and I looked up all of his fights and I watched them all, and I became such a big fan of him. He was really a
A
dark
lot of
horse.
people didn't know who he was.
Yeah, he was truly a dark horse of the 170 pound division, and to see him rise up like this out of nowhere, come in, beat a former champion, arguably better than Kamaru Usman did, and then have that title fight taken away from him because of COVID. It stings, man. It stings. As a newfound fan for Gilbert Burns,
Yeah.
I'm kind of upset, but I understand it happens. I'm pretty sure the Brazilian president doesn't believe that COVID even exists. So
That's good.
I don't even know if Gilbert
That's great.
lives in Brazil, but I know it's really bad in Brazil, and his training partners are obviously from there, and there's just so much that's wrong with where he's from, and I can't say I'm surprised, at him testing positive, but I am surprised that Masvidal and Kamaru Usman have gotten this far, because
Yeah.
both of them have just been known to be very difficult to work with. I know both of them turned down fights left and right because of money or whatnot, so I'm very happy that it's actually going in a positive direction. And I know I just said I'm a huge Gilbert hipster fan and all, but I think I would like to see Jorge fight more
Same.
than Gilbert, just because of how he's a star. He's literally it's Street Jesus. Do you want to watch a dark
Street
horse
Jesus.
fight, or do you want to watch Street Jesus? You want to watch Street Jesus, even if he's got a less chance of winning. And I think the story that could develop from this, after being turned down from the UFC so many times and then coming back at the final moment on a week's notice and actually fighting and potentially winning is just incredible.
Such
And
a good story.
it is a fantastic story. I'm a sucker for stories, let me tell you. I go, oh my lord. So to wrap that whole rant off, I am surprised that they are actually moving on this and actually getting a fight together, because I want to see it so bad. 3 title fights in one night as well. Even if this didn't get on the card, it would still be a good card. You've got
Yeah,
Peter Yan versus Jose Aldo, Max Holloway, Alexander Volkanovski. It's a good card.
damn good
Paige
card.
Van Zandt fighting this Abby character. I don't know who she is. She's gigantic
Amanda.
though. Yeah. She's gonna bring her golf club and everything.
Oh,
But
too soon.
I am very excited for this fight.
Yeah.
I really don't think he's got a good shot, but obviously I can't count him out. It's Masvidal. That dude's crazy, you know.
Yeah.
So I would give it to Usman, but maybe like a 60-40 shot, I would say.
It's gonna be interesting to see if Masvidal is able to deal with that wrestling. You know, on the feet, oh man, those two
Oh,
could go at it, and Masvidal might beat him if we're talking strictly a boxing match, but we're not. Um, if Usman is able to employ that dominant wrestling style that he used against Tyron, ooh, I think it's gonna be a hard night for Masvidal. Um, but I am shocked that there's the only thing pending on this is whether or not they test negative for COVID. Like, what did the UFC just cave? I wonder. Did they just pay him? I'm gonna be so interested to see when this is all said and done. If we get there, I'm gonna be so interested to hear, because Jorge is gonna talk about it, how these negotiations went. All the journalists are gonna be asking, like, so did they pay you what you wanted now, or did it maybe they didn't. And maybe he's just saying, shit, this is a good opportunity. It's a week away. I gotta decide now. Um, maybe I just take money or take lesser money just to slide into this slot and fight for the title finally. I don't know. The question is, who caved? Did Jorge cave or did the UFC cave? I guess the negotiations were difficult.
or Kyle, a third option, Dana White's most feared option. Did they come to a compromise? Oh boy, Dana White he's shuddering at the thought of that word, but who
I
knows?
yeah, I well, but that still implies, I think, that someone caved. I think
Yeah.
the only way either party would compromise is if they got what they wanted. Did the UFC finally just say, "All right, fuck it, we gotta save this card. We only got a week. You're a goddamn star. It's our first Fight Island card. We gotta make it badass. We gotta make sure we reel in all those pay-per-view buys." Maybe they did finally say, like, geez, this is a great way to get more pay-per-view buys, because Jorge is a much more marketable name than Gilbert, much more compelling star than Gilbert Burns is. Uh, Maybe they said, "Fuck it, give him what he wants. Let's just get him on the card. That way we could, really sell this first Fight Island card, 3 title fights, and the person at the top of the main event, it's a champion and the biggest star in the sport next to Conor McGregor." Maybe it was as
You know,
simple as that.
when you put it like that, it makes a lot of sense,
Yeah.
especially because Jorge's got the leverage, like you just pointed out. So if I were to vote on whoever caved in, I would say it's the UFC.
I think, yeah, they would be stupid to not give in to him at this point. I guess it makes sense to not give in to him. Of course, I think Jorge should be paid good money regardless, but if we're talking about a few weeks ago, when there's not really a fight set up for him, we don't really know where he's at in the division. There's other names in the division. We already have a title fight set up. Maybe hold on and don't pay him crazy amounts of money just yet. But now we're in this situation where we got a week to figure this shit out. Our star just tested positive for COVID. We need to get somebody in there. Oh shit. The biggest star in the sport might be able to fill in. Yeah, maybe we should just pay him because the reward is probably going to be significant.
Oh man. Now I gotta ask you. I gotta ask you.
Okay.
Who wins this fight? What do you think about it? Because there's a lot of variables here, and I don't know what to think.
Usman via decision.
Usman via decision. That's
my
respectable.
prediction.
I wonder. I wonder how the negotiating went with Colby. If there was any negotiating with him, or maybe if he was just the second option.
Somebody said, who was it? I think it was Ben Askren, because Ben Askren he's basically Chael Sonnen now. He doesn't fight, but he talks a lot, you know.
Yeah.
And Ben Askren's a smart dude. He's got a lot of good opinions and takes and stuff. I like hearing what he has to say. He said, I think Jorge is serious, because both guys were being like, call me up, I'll fill in. Jorge is serious, Colby is not. Colby might just be saying things to say them. Colby likes to make noise. Masvidal, when he says some shit, Masvidal keeps it real 100% of the time. That's why people love him so much. Same as Nate Diaz. Masvidal it does not bullshit. So when Masvidal says, "Hey, I'll take this fight," he means it. Colby, you can't believe a word that comes out of Colby's mouth.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he wouldn't want to fight Usman again. It was a pretty close fight. But he did get battered and his jaw got broken. So maybe he is a little hesitant to take it again. He may have just been saying it like, oh, call me up, knowing realistically it wasn't going to happen. I don't know.
Maybe,
it's hard to say. It's hard to say with anything for certain with a character like Colby, because you really can't believe a lot of what he says.
Yeah, in the end, he is a character. That's not really Colby. At least that's what everyone says.
Yeah.
And all of his friends and colleagues say.
Mm-hmm.
But, oh man. How long do we have to wait till we figure this out? Was it 48 hours?
Pending COVID-19 testing. I don't know how long does it take to get results for these tests.
Depends. I've heard like some people it takes days, some tests take minutes, some take hours. I think it's all up in the air.
Depends on how rich you are, I bet.
Yeah, I would think the UFC has pretty good testing. But at the same time, with the volume of testing they're doing, maybe they're cheaping out a little bit on the form of testing. I don't know. I really can't say. I'm not a doctor, or I'm not in the UFC as much as I would like to be. I don't belong to them. So I don't know. It's up in the air.
Yeah, I am paying close attention to all of this.
It's a fun time in MMA again,
It is.
We've got some suspense here.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it sucks. Uh-oh.
What do you got?
Ariel Helwani just posted a video of Jorge, and it says, well, look who just landed moments ago. Landed where, though?
Oh, they went to Las Vegas to get tested before they leave to Fight Island. Maybe that was when he initially went there to get tested, I think.
Let's see what he says. Just taking a stroll. Don't get all excited. Just stretching the legs,
Oh, dude, I love him so much.
He's a troll, man. He loves trolling
Stretching the legs.
he knows we love him so much, and we just want to see him fight. But he's like, Street Jesus. Street Jesus fights when Street Jesus is ready to fight. You don't tell him what to do.
I love how Ben Askren has like such respect for him, because at least he's like a real dude. You know what I mean?
They seem like they actually like each other now.
Yeah.
It's cool.
It's fun. I like that.
Because they both kind of shot into stardom after that fight. Even Askren, I guarantee you Askren got so much more clout after that, even getting knocked out brutally,
I mean, what happens when Askren dodges that knee and grabs his legs? Well, how would the fight have gone in that regard? I don't know. That's the big question. We will never know. I want to go to a parallel universe and watch that fight happen again, and hopefully that knee misses. Unfortunately, we don't have that tech yet, so we'll get back to you on that one. But
yep. We're working on it here on Caffeinated Combat.
Our engineering team is hard at work. Trust me.
Yeah. Who you got on your team?
Ben Askren. He's been asking me to help him with this for a while. So you could see what. All right.
I got Dylan Dennis.
Oh, okay.
He makes
that is a good fight. Dylan versus Askren.
Uh,
Just because of stylistically, they both don't have striking, but I would give Askren that 10 times out of 10. So maybe it wouldn't be that good of a fight.
I got Dylan Dennis helping me with his parallel universe time machine where he goes back and has a more remarkable MMA career and maybe ends up in the UFC instead of Bellator.
Oh man. Yeah, I don't think he's getting there anytime soon, dude.
Or he becomes his own man rather than Connor's lapdog.
I encourage you to go watch his fights. Ren, I know you're there. Go watch his fights. I really
don't give a shit about him.
Yeah, I guarantee you'll give some shits about him if you at least watch his 2 fights. They're pretty fun because he does get beat up a bit. It's kind of like it's just like Ben Askren Robbie Lawler won, at least from what I remember. It's been a while. All right. Anything else you wanted to mention?
When's Robbie Lawler gonna fight again?
Doesn't have a fight booked up. I think was it last time when he lost to Colby? Is that when he just kind of like gave up, taking some time off?
I think so. Did he have a fight booked and then it got canceled because of the pandemic? Is that true, or am I making that up?
I want to say no, but I don't know. I could tell you in a sec.
This guy's doing big Googles.
Ruthless Robbie Lawler. Damn, he has 3 losses in a row. Maybe he's just taking time off.
Damn.
His KD ratio is 2 though, so that's pretty good.
KD ratio.
No next fight.
Here's a fight, Matthew.
What you got?
Kevin Lee moves up to welterweight and fights Robbie Lawler.
Well, Kevin's got Firas a hobby now, so he's no slouch.
What does Kevin normally fight at? 155?
Yep.
Oh,
he's a big dude for that weight.
He can go up to 170. Come on.
I mean, he's been asking
Kevin.
for 165. I feel like
Dana White doesn't give a shit about 160. He does not want to hear that nonsense. So just go up to 170.
Who did Kevin Lee just fight and lose to?
Um,
Charles Oliveira, that's right.
Yeah. Before that, he had that crazy knockout against Gregor Gillespie. Yeah. Everyone thought he was new shit, and then he got fucked up again.
I mean, he's a good fighter, obviously. He's got Gregor Edson, Michael Kiss under his belt.
He's just got problems, you know. But
yeah.
I think being with Firas, that might work some of his shit out.
He's got a win against John Tuck. Good work.
Who the hell is that?
Nobody knows who that is.
Oh.
JP Reese. All right. I'm sorry, JP Reese. I didn't mean to flame you like that.
Oh.
I mean, he's got a 3 KD ratio. That's pretty good, you know.
KD
18
ratio.
wins, 6 losses, so he's looking good.
Oh man. I guess we should wrap up now.
Yeah.
Hang on, let me check one more time just to see if there's any more news about. No, nothing new. So we're just waiting on the testing results to see if
they're gonna make this so suspenseful just to build more hype. Guarantee it. They're not even gonna release the results when they get them back. Unless they're negative. I don't know.
What if?
Uh-oh. He's thinking, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, I've said this before. What if we do a surprise main event?
Yes.
What if we test them all and fly them all out and we say, hey, it's either Usman, Covington, or Masvidal. All in that. Like any 3 could fight any, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it could be any matchup. It could be Masvidal and Covington. It could be Usman and Masvidal. It could be Usman and Covington. And we just keep it a surprise.
That would be fun. There's no matchup that I wouldn't want to see.
Until the walkout, you don't know who it's.
That would be crazy.
It's the COVID lottery. Who tested negative?
There's a very real possibility that Usman tests positive too. I think.
Is he already in Abu Dhabi? I feel like he is. He's not? Oh, that's right. They didn't
Yeah.
fly him out either.
Yeah, which is weird.
Fuck.
So who knows what's gonna happen here? Don't worry,
So
Caffeinated Combat will keep you posted.
no, we won't. We won't.
Well,
Ariel Helwani will.
Yeah, he works for us.
Oh, is that true?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Ariel.
Happy to have you on the team, Ariel.
Yeah,
All right.
it's all up in the air.
Well,
Well,
hey, hopefully it all works out with this July 11th card. It's going to be so interesting to see the spectacle that is Yas Island, Abu Dhabi, and how much they try to play this up into something it's not.
hey, I saw the palm trees, brother. That octagon was on the beach too, so
Yeah, but they're
I'm
not
pretty
going to
happy about
use
it.
that
Shut up.
in the actual. You know what I have a feeling they're going to do? I have a feeling that beach octagon they're going to use as like a commentary space.
Yeah, promotional stuff.
So
only,
like Dominic
too.
Cruz and like Dan Hardy are gonna sit in there and like show you fucking striking techniques or something.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean,
Michael
either
Bisping's
way, we're
gonna
getting
sit
good
there.
fights, so it's not too big of a deal. But Dana, we want it on the beach in the blistering heat. All right, come on. We want
We
the
want
mosquitoes
people to
get them.
dehydrate and pass
Yeah.
out.
It's really what it's all about, you know. It's the graphics. Okay.
But one more time before on a fully serious note, all the best to Gilbert Burns. Hope he makes a nice recovery. I know he'll be back better than ever, fighting for that welterweight strap. The dude's a future champ. I'm telling you right now, he's a future champ. Whether he beats Usman or not, of course or whoever is welterweight champ by that point, by the time he gets his next title shot, the dude is a future champ. And all our best to the Nurmagomedov family and everyone over in Dagestan that was impacted by just the incredible life of Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov. Yeah, it's just giving all our best to those guys and hoping they all are able to, come back stronger. I know they will. So yeah, that's it from us here. Matt, you got anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
No, I think we said all that needed to be said, you know. Thank you all for listening. All 0 of you. We love you. I kid. There's at least one person maybe. Anyway.
Do you think anyone watches and or listens to this to completion, like from start to finish?
Yes. Ren. How are you?
My mom.
Papa.
No
Papa
one
Kyle.
does. No one gives a shit about us.
Who gives a fuck? This has been Caffeinated Combat. Thank you for listening. And we'll be back next week. Talk about Fight Island 1. Oh boy, it's going to be a good one.